All right, so hello everyone. Today what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be showing you all the ins and outs of Google Slides. So I'm getting requests from both teachers and students about handing in work or giving out work in the easiest possible way, and still trying to make it creative and engaging, but not wanting to post 8 different attachments, one for each page that they want the kids to do. So I'm going to go through some of the different aspects of Google Slides and all the different ways you can use it and why it's such a great tool. If you need any help, always feel free to reach out towards me. My comments are always open. And please, please, please feel free to watch this video again and again. Hopefully you'll find some interesting new information here. Okay, so to get started, I've just opened up a template that I was using for what I'm doing at my school called Freaky Friday. Basically, it is an interactive template that allows you to, in presentation mode, click on different things and makes it really simple for kids to pick and choose their own activities. This is based off of an idea that was presented to me by the librarians who use an interactive method to do something similar with books and activities. So I'm going to show you using this template all the different things you can do. I'm also going to go through some different extensions or programs that you might want to use that are really helpful and that I find I myself use a lot. Okay, so let's get started. So the very first thing you're going to want is to take notice of this bar right here. This is one of the most important bars that you're going to use because it changes depending on what you click. Okay, so to get started, I'm just going to do an example here. Here's the cursor. Here's our text box. This is to insert an image, shape, line. This is comments. Okay. Personally, I find the comments very helpful because as I'm working on something, I will leave a trail of comments behind me for things that I want to go back and do or go back and fix. That's just a personal thing. Totally up to you how you want to choose to do it. With the comments, though, you can either select the slide and add a comment, in which case it doesn't tie to anything except the slide itself, or what you can do is select a particular thing and drop a comment. And for example, with art, I used a paintbrush, but could possibly use palette. If I could spell properly, that would be great. So something like this, then you could comment and then leave yourself for later. And then that way, if you've got a whole bunch of comments, as soon as you put your cursor, it creates a yellow highlight over whatever object that you've tied the comment to. So I'm just going to resolve that. So that's just something quick that I will often find myself doing throughout the process. Or if you have a link that you want to use, but you don't know how or what you're going to tie it to yet, you can click on the slideshow, add a comment, insert whatever hyperlink that you want to include but haven't decided how to do it yet, and then leave it in the comment box for later. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to start with the text box. So I'm going to click on this and it changes my cursor to this little cross. This allows me to click and drag. Okay. This automatically creates a default text box for you to type in. You can see that it's blinking right here. Couple of things to note. One, the default settings means that the text will be black and the background will be transparent. So as soon as you start typing, it's really hard to read, especially because I've got this this background here of tree bark. So there's a couple different things you can do. One, you can highlight your text, and using this highlighter, because you can see now up here, all of this has changed. I can change the font, I can change the size, bold, italics, underline. This is the text color. I could choose a different text color, but it's still going to be fairly hard to read against this particular background. So what I could do is I could use the highlighter button, and I could highlight it in white, so it's a little easier to read. Personally, I'm not a fan of the highlighter option just because I find it too small, but depending on what you're using it for, it might be perfect. So the other option is, instead of highlighting it, what you can do instead is you can actually go over here, and this controls the the box. So these over here are for the text box. These over here are for the text itself. Okay? So I can actually fill that box with white instead, and now that's a lot easier to read. Okay, what I did to get this effect here of the lined paper is I actually went to Google Images and I went and found a copyright-free version of a lined piece of paper. And I inserted that as an image, which I'll show you how to do. And my text box here is simply black text. I chose a different font. I chose a different size. It's simply black text, and you can see here, it's just got a transparent background. Okay, so you can create the illusion that your text is on something other than what it actually is. You don't have to use this option with everything. Like down here, again, I went online and I got a sticky note, but my text box itself just has a clear background. So that way I'm not trying to fill the text box with the color of the sticky note to make it match. Okay, so now that we're here, I'm going to show you a couple things you can do with the text box. So that's for later. What a lot of people are doing is they are creating links, and you can create a link to a particular website, or you can create a link to a different slide here in Google Slides. And what people are doing, and this isn't wrong, this is just a little more difficult as the receiver of the object, is they are highlighting the text and they are creating this here. This is our links button. No matter what program you're in, you're going to have an insert link option. Sometimes it looks like this, sometimes it looks like 3 circles side by side, so it resembles a chain or a bunch of links together. So they are clicking this, and then what it does is it takes the actual text of text sample, and it allows you to put in a link. So I'm just going to quickly go here to a video I happen to have open. And if I paste it here, you can see here there's my link to YouTube, and I just use the shortcuts Command-C and Command-V to copy and paste. You can also right-click and use copy, right-click and use paste. If you're on a PC, it's going to be Control-C and Control-V. I'm just on a Mac, that's why it's slightly different. But you can see here that the link is a YouTube link. So if I was to insert the YouTube link, it looks pretty ugly. It's long, it's got a bunch of random numbers and letters. By inserting the link this way, it allows me to have the words text sample, but bring me to the link that I chose. So as soon as I hit apply, you can see it changes the color and it underlines it. You can go back and change that back again. You know, that doesn't have to stay the way that it is. But it means that as soon as I hover my cursor over it, it brings up the link to the video. Now, if I'm in presentation mode, what it will actually do is you'll see that the cursor changes to a finger, and that's because as soon as I click it, it will actually open up and bring me to that particular link. Okay? Now, the problem that I'm finding with this is that you see here, you have to actually click on the text, and depending on what font you use, sometimes clicking on the actual physical like the actual S and not around it can be kind of tricky. So a better way that I have found to do it, and it's better for me, it's not necessarily better for you, is that what you can do is instead of just take that link out right there, remove link. I can also edit it or copy it if I need to, but for now I'm going to remove it. What I found is easier to do is to actually tie it to the text box itself. So when you click in here and you highlight this and you click the link button, it turns the actual text to the link. But if you click out here, and you can see this is the same way that I can move the box around, and you don't see that vertical line pulsating in there, and then you click the link button, what it actually does is you can see it doesn't say text anymore, it just says link. So as soon as you hit paste, now what it does is it turns the entire text box into that link. So if you go into presentation mode, instead of me having to put my cursor over the actual text in order to get it, as soon as I enter anywhere in that white space, you can see that it turns to that finger, because anywhere in that white space is going to be the link for the YouTube video that I hyperlinked in there. Now, not everyone is going to want to link a video. Some people might want to link to a different part of the presentation. So for example here, I'm just going to delete that. For example here, if I click on music, it brings me to the music slide. If I click home, it brings me back to the main page. Art brings me to the music page because I disinfected it. I took it all off for this particular video. But you can see here, even brain breaks, as soon as I click on it, it brings me to different places. So what you're going to do is you can actually select multiple things. So if I want to go to this slide, Google Slides has an individual URL, which is this address bar at the top, for every single slide. So if I want to set it up so that this icon, this text, and or this sticky note all bring me to the right slide, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the slide, I'm going to copy the link, and again, whatever shortcut you want to use. Then what I can do is I can highlight everything, and that link button goes away. Okay, so you have to be careful and pick and choose what you want to do. I personally have linked multiple things, but I find the easiest thing to do is pick the biggest object and link it to that. So you can see here, I've got the link option right there. So as soon as I insert the link, I can now link it to slide number 2. To repeat this process, I now go to slide number 3. I see my art slide. I copy the link. I go back to the home page. I click on the biggest object, which is the background, and I link in slide number 3. Okay? Now, what can be a little bit tricky is that you want to kind of cover all of your bases. So I personally will also go in and take the object, and I will still link that to the same slide. And I will take the text box, and I will link it to the same slide. So now it means that no matter where a person clicks in here, it will take them to the next slide. Okay? So you can see here on the text box, I've got this link to slide number 4. Watch what happens when I go into presentation mode and see the difference. So in gym, so in art, you remember that we linked everything to slide 3. We linked the paintbrush, we linked the text box, and we linked the sticky note. But in gym, we only linked to the sticky note. So as soon as I click and I move my cursor here, you can see as soon as I enter the box with the picture of the barbell or the dumbbell, my cursor changes. That means that as soon as I click on here, it brings me to the next slide in the sequence, which happens to be music. But if I want to go to gym, I have to click outside of that. Okay? So, whereas with art, because I took all 3 of those objects and I linked all of them to the same place, the cursor doesn't change at all, and no matter where I click, it's always going to bring me to the same place. Okay? Another trick with this is I find when I'm creating this for students, sometimes they click in the background and then it brings them to the next page, which happens to be music, and that gets very confusing because they didn't realize they clicked, they didn't mean to click, whatever the case may be. So what I will actually do is I will copy the link for the same slide, and then I will select the background and then insert the link right there. So it means that now if they click anywhere on this image, and because this image is in the background, it means that I can still use my links for the art because it's in the foreground, it's closer to you, which means that if you can see it, it's more important. So now if I go into presentation mode, my art links will still work because they're in front of the background, but if I click anywhere in the background, it doesn't take me anywhere. It just leaves me right here. Okay? So that's all about inserting links. Now, I did say that you could insert a link to a YouTube video, and we did notice that when I inserted the YouTube video, it opened up in a new tab. But some people want to keep everything clean and they want to keep it close together, or they want to provide examples or different instructions along the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my gym tab here, and I'm just going to make sure that all of my images are linked to gym. Perfect. So when I go to the gym page, now I have this kids workout video that you've seen me use up until now. I want to give it to the kids, but I also want to give them instructions. So I could set it up in such a way that the link tied to the picture, the text box, and the background image all bring me to that tab. Or I can tie it so that they all bring me to slide number 4, and I can actually embed the video right into the presentation so that it doesn't create a pop-up and you don't have to go anywhere. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the link from YouTube, and I'm going to go to Insert, and I'm going to go to Video. Okay. Now this is where it gets kind of cool. So what you can do is you can, it automatically brings you to a YouTube search bar. So you can paste that URL right in there, or you can even search kids workout 1 beginners, and it'll just bring you to basically the YouTube search page. Okay. You could do URL. This also works to an extent with other video providers with some exceptionalities. So you could potentially post a link here to a video from another page that's not YouTube. And it also brings you to your Google Drive. So the cool thing is that if you have a video that you've made for your students of, say, yourself that you want to insert in there, you could save it to your Google Drive and then link it this way as well. So I'm going to just use this YouTube video. And ta-da, it puts it right in there. Okay, I can click and drag and move it around. I notice that there's black bars at the top and bottom, so I can resize it a little bit if I want to. Like totally up to me. It automatically opens these format options for me. For the most part, you don't have to do anything. You could just leave it. But you can also decide to autoplay, which means that as soon as this page opens, this video starts playing. That means that they don't have to click play, they don't have to click anything, it's just right there. Honestly, the rest of this is just cosmetic. Explore it if you want, but I'm not going to touch on it in this video because it's not part of the essentials, and this video is going to be long enough as it is. So I can just close that out. Okay, so now I've got the video. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to insert a text box with some instructions. So I'm going to click on the text box, click and drag for the size I want. I'm going to click on the text box, fill it, and make the text a little bit bigger. Okay, I could take time and actually fill this out properly. I don't want this text box to do anything, but you know what? Just to make sure that the kids are going to click this properly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Insert, Shape. I could also do this by going here to the Shapes button. And I'm going to go to Callouts, and I'm going to create a little speech bubble, like a comic book. Okay? So now I can't type in this. This is just an image. But what I can do is I can resize it using the blue corners, and I can also drag and change how big or long the actual triangular bubble is. Okay? So now I've got that there, and I'm going to insert a text box on top of it that just says, click me. Okay? Now, if I want this to be a little visually nicer, I can change it so that it's centered, and I can also change it so that it's in the middle of the text box itself. So if the text box is the size of the speech bubble, then by clicking that center button, it puts it right in the middle, and I'm not having to drag and shift, and hopefully it looks right. Okay, so that's how you insert a video. Now you can also insert pictures. You can also insert Bitmojis, which are a new craze that a lot of teachers are getting into. And personally, I love the Bitmoji, so I'm going to go there first. So there is this wonderful extension. I use Google Chrome, so I just Googled Bitmoji Chrome extension, and it's the very first option. And you have to create the account on your smartphone first, and it's for iPhone, it's for Android, it's for every device that's a smartphone. I went into YouTube, I typed in how to make Bitmoji, and the very first is Bitmoji Guide, making it your own using Snapchat, Facebook. You don't necessarily need it for Snapchat and Facebook, but it will walk you through at the very least how to get it started. And if you look, the first two videos here I have sent to several colleagues, and they found them very helpful as to how to actually make your Bitmoji. So once you've made your Bitmoji on your phone, and then you've installed the Google Chrome extension, you get this little green pop-up right here. And the Google Slides is very interactive with the Bitmoji, which is great. So normally you would have to go to Insert, Image, and then you could either upload it from your computer, from Google Drive, from a URL. You could take it with the camera built into your device if you have one. And it's very simple, just, click and insert. But Bitmoji, to save it and then insert it, it always gives it this white background, and then you have to go to another website. The one I use is remove.bg. And this one is really great. It takes the background out, but also allows you to restore certain things. So if it takes out, say you're wearing a white t-shirt on a white background and it takes out the t-shirt, you can go in and manually restore the white t-shirt before you save it. So that website's great, but I find that it's very hard. So with this extension and the fact that it works really well with Google Slides, means that you can click on the Bitmoji. Has a bunch of default ones kind of here right away, but you can actually search. You can search by pose, you can search by object, and they've created a new thing where now if you type in any text, it will give you a couple of options where that text is part of your Bitmoji, basically just up and around. If you don't like any of the options, I find that if you actually close it and go back into it, every time you do it, it gives you slightly different options. So if I look for congrats. So you can see here, I've got a lot of different options. But if I do it again, now I have a trophy. I don't have the bumblebee that was there. Like, I've got some different options. So some of them are standard, the good job, the congrats, like some of them are standard, but some of them are not. So if you're not finding what you want, it might just take a couple tries. But if I'm going to try for this gym one, I'm going to try to say gym. Okay, so I've got leg day, gym time. I've got a couple that are loading. I could also try workout. Okay, it gives me some similar ones. You know what? I think this one's going to be cool. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the one that I want, and I'm going to click, and I'm going to drag. Okay, so you're going to click onto your image, and you're going to drag it, and you'll see that little plus sign appear. As soon as I let go, it creates the image, and boom, not only is it in there, and I can resize it and move it around, but it also has a clear background. Okay? So now that that's in there, there is so much you can do with this now. Okay? So what I did to just showcase some examples is I went to music. I created 3 text boxes that each link to a different source, and I numbered them so the students know which one to open first. Okay? I went to art. I created styles of art defined, so it's an actual definition, the actual activity, and some music to work by. Created the gym, and created a brain break. So if I go through this presentation, you can see how fully immersive it is, and it keeps everything in the same spot. So if I go to music first, get the sheet music, it opens up, and you can see it's tied to Google Drive. So this is sheet music that I saved in Google Drive and attached. Oh, look, there's the music for the kids to play. Okay. Then if I click play along with a song, it brings me to a YouTube video that I linked that is a play along. None of that is mine, by the way. That's somebody else that I found on YouTube who was very helpful. And then I also created a link to Flipgrid, which is a way for students to record themselves and send it in to teachers. If you haven't tried it, I do recommend it. So then this would bring me to the actual assignment in Flipgrid, so that students would be able to hand in their work. They could log in and just hand it in. Okay. I can then go to art. Okay, styles of art defined. What art style are we using today? We are using, as soon as it loads, different styles of art. Okay, there's Cubism, there's Surrealism, there's Impressionism, and there's Realism. So this is a poster I got from Crayola in Teachers College because they were handing them out for free. Here's the activity that I want them to do, and here's some music to work by. So if I click on that, it brings up music that they could listen to while they work. If I click on the actual activity, it brings them to the Google Doc that I created with the sample art activity instruction sheet on it. So you don't have to insert just images. You can insert literally anything else, okay? And then as soon as I go to Gym, you'll see the click me, you'll see my little Bitmoji, and then brain breaks. So the last thing that I want to show you how to insert before I play around and show you the extent of how in-depth people are going with this is the audio button. So what I do is I have an iPhone, which makes everything very easy to switch back and forth between my phone and my laptop. I use the voice memo default app that is built into my phone, and I create a recording of what I want the kids to hear, listen, see, or do. So that could be simply, you know what, I had to write out a lot of instructions. I'm going to just read the instructions out loud and record myself reading them so that the kids who have difficulty reading can listen to me read them instead of trying to read them themselves. That could be something like, I want to give instructions and not write anything down, or, you know, whatever you choose to use it for. What you do is you go to Insert, and you go to Audio. As soon as you go there, it brings you to Google Drive. Okay, this is a very immersive with Google Drive program because it's Google Slides. So what I do is I create the video or the audio, on my phone, and then I upload it to Google Drive. Now the problem is that when you upload, it uploads as a file called M4A. Okay. Google does not like M4A, which means that you're going to have to go convert it to MP3. Now, if you have a Mac laptop, it has this awesome built-in function where you can find any audio file, and if it's not already MP3, what you can do is you can go to rename, and you can actually change it. So if I go M4A, it gives me this little pop-up, and I can use M4A, and now it's actually changed the file type. So if it comes to me as an M4A, I can go to rename, I can switch this to .mp3, hit enter, and it allows me to switch it. Okay, this is an awesome built-in feature of Mac. Unfortunately, PC does not have this, which means you're going to need to go to Google and you're going to need to search M4A to MP3 converter. Okay, if you try to insert an audio file that is not MP3, it will give you an error message and it will not allow you to do it. Now, once you've inserted it, here's the next trick. You will be able to listen to it, but not necessarily anybody you send it to. So what you need to do is you need to know where that audio file came from. So I do recommend organizing your Google Drive. For example, mine has a lot of different organization tools. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to make sure that this here, this little icon, no matter where you go, it tells you who you've shared it with and what the share permissions are. So if you have an audio file or if you have a video that you want to share, you're going to have to right click it and get shareable link. As soon as you do that, it gives you this pop-up and it allows you to change if it's restricted or not. As soon as you upload an audio or video file to Google Drive, it automatically restricts it to restricted. So that means that you have to go in and everything that you add to your Google slide, you have to change to either your school board, because mine's tied to it, or anyone with this link. And as soon as you do that, it means that for me, I just go to anybody with this link, because if they got far enough to get my presentation, they might be on a personal account versus their school account, and it's just going to give you a bunch of error messages as the teacher of people trying to access it from the wrong account and not understanding why it won't work. So as long as you make sure that you right click and then change the permissions, you're good to go. If you do anything here with the share button, it only changes the permissions of this file. It doesn't change the permissions of anything you've linked into the file. Okay? The reason this doesn't need it is because when you inserted the video, you created a URL link, so it links it to a different website. This will work perfectly fine. The only time that you're going to need to give permission to a video is a video that you have put into Google Drive, and then you have linked into your presentation from Google Drive, because at that moment it's your personal property and you need to tell the program to share it with people. Okay? So as soon as that's in there, now we've got this lovely audio button that as soon as I click, we'll play some audio of whatever you decided to use it for. Okay? This is ugly. This little audio button is just, unfortunately, not very visually appealing. So what I've discovered you can do, thanks to some people on a Facebook group that I'm a part of, is that you can actually right click and you can go to replace image. And as soon as you go here, you can actually select any image from the web, from Google Drive, etc. So if I wanted to go to the web, it brings me to Google Images. I can go for audio button and I can select anything and replace it. And now that's what it looks like instead. So what I have done is I have created a tour of my school for new incoming students, and I asked teachers to create an audio file introducing themselves. So what I did is I inserted the audio file and then I replaced this audio image with a picture of their Bitmoji instead. So now that it means that as students want to hear from a particular teacher, they click on an image of that teacher and then they get to hear that teacher's voice. This could also be great for books. If you're reading a book to a student, or if you have a link to an audio read aloud, instead of having this ugly image here, what you could do is you could actually replace the image with the cover of the book. And then that means that when students want to listen to that book, they click on it and they're good to go. Now, in saying that, this is really interactive. This whole presentation is great. The one problem that I have run into with this is some people who are on devices such as phones or iPads, they have a little bit of trouble with all of the links and all of the pop-ups and everything else, because one minute you're in presentation mode and then the next minute it's giving you a pop-up on the internet. So another option that you could do, especially if you are having to post this as an image instead of posting it as a link, because as soon as I go to share, I can share this URL with anybody here. Like right now it's set to anyone in HWDSB can edit it. Well, I don't want that happening. I'm just going to change that to viewing only. So as soon as I click done, I can copy the link here. I can now send that link to people. If I wanted a prettier link, I could Google actually there's a website, it's called tinyurl. And tinyurl basically takes long, complicated URLs that are ugly and makes them small. So I can paste that one in there, and instead of having this URL, it's this one right here. Okay, so visually, a lot smaller, a lot nicer looking. You can also, if you so choose, upload it as an image if you're using something like Instagram or whatever, but the problem is as soon as you upload it as an image, it's no longer interactive. So it no longer allows me to click on this and it brings me here, click on that and it brings me there. So you would have to have it all on one place, and you would have to be very very critical of what you use it for. So instead of linking in a URL, what you can do is you can use a QR code. So there's this awesome QR code Chrome extension. You know, I just Googled QR Chrome extension and it brought me up to a couple. And what you can do is when you're on a website, so say the kids workout, it's kind of hard to see right now, but that is my QR code right there, generator. So as soon as I click on that, it brings me and it says, this is the website, here's the QR code. So as soon as I click save, it goes into my downloads and it saves as a PNG, which is an image. So now what I can do is, instead of having the image of the barbell, what I can do is I can just click and drag this image of the QR code. And now it means that any of my students can use a QR code reader, which is free on any device, just in your app store or your Play Store, and they would be able to scan that image and it would bring them to the website. Okay, and most QR readers, if you're worried about, you know, having to print off the image and then scan it, most QR readers now actually can detect a QR code in an image and ask that if you'd like to open that particular link. So there's a couple different ways that you can get the information to students. This would mean that I could replace all of these images with the QR codes to the one resource that I wanted them to use, and they'd be able to get to it. The downside of that is that, you know, if you wanted to give them more than one thing for gym, I would recommend making the QR code link to the gym slide and then making the QR code for here. But then once they get here, you're going to have to make QR codes for every resource, every instruction, every video that you wanted them to do, and it's going to be a lot. So the easiest way is to send people the code, and like I said, if you want to use that tinyurl website to shorten the code and make it a little nicer, that's an option too. And depending on how you're presenting it to the students, a lot of websites actually have the option of the same as Google Slides here, where you can take text and you can insert a link. A lot of emails and websites and that will have that as well. Okay, so on to the last part of the video is basically how intense you can get with this. So I'm part of a Facebook group called Bitmoji for Teachers, I believe, and it is fantastic. The people in there are way more creative than myself, and they've created some really awesome resources. So what they've done is they've actually found blank backgrounds that look like classrooms, that look like houses, and they have created classrooms. And they've inserted their Bitmoji in there. So then what they do is they would share this one image or this one place, and then it's interactive in the sense that you could potentially click on different books behind the teacher and do different things with it. Some people just like it for the banner. They just use it as an image on their personal website. That's totally fine too. Basically all it is a bunch of clip art, and I have another file from the same group that's just clip art images, and you can see here, you can move things around, whatever. And they've just resized and manipulated their character, their Bitmoji, to make it look like they're interacting with whatever other clip art images are there. and it's honestly fantastic. But you could even take it a step further, and this wonderful woman here is a music teacher, and so what she decided to do was actually link all of the objects in her classroom to different things. So if you click on the boom whackers, it brings you to a boom whacker play along. If you click on this, it brings you to a different slide where she's got different activities. If you click on the ukulele, it brings you to Music Play Online about the ukulele. So something like this you could share with kids, and it doesn't necessarily look as standard and as plain as this, but it's still interactive for the kids. They can still click on different things and go different places. So there's so much that you can do with this. I really hope you have fun exploring and having fun with this. If there's anything that I forgot to mention, please drop a comment, let me know. I will definitely update this video if I need to. Now, a lot of the resources in here, especially the ones I've recently shown you, are not necessarily mine. Some of them are, like I said, they're videos that other people have made on YouTube. Like the kids workout video is a workout video that I just liked. There's some Go Noodle stuff that I've been using. So this video itself is mine, the audio is mine, but a lot of the resources I'm showing you are resources that I use and you don't necessarily have to use, but I would recommend. I also recommend that if you are a teacher on Facebook, that you go join the Bitmoji teachers group, because they are a fantastic group of people and they absolutely love sharing resources with each other and different tips and tricks along the way. That's how I actually figured out how to switch the image of the audio here, was from one of the people in the group, because they are absolutely fantastic. So again, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, drop them in the comments below, or if you're an HWDSB member, feel free to send me an email and I would love to walk you through it. Okay? Have a good day.